Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Sunday gathering. It's good to see you all this morning. Sunday, January 12th. The year is going to fly by. If it's anything like the last couple of weeks, it's going to fly by. All right. It's good to see all you guys. Let me say good mornings to all y'all. I noticed at the beginning, Thomas Morgan, Patriot Keto Pop. Good morning, Red Raven. Suomi Torah. KK Moon, Julia Thomas, good morning. Ed Mack, good morning. Christine Yu, Rick Bowser, Deborah Hicks, and I think we're getting close. That's about it. Christian, good morning. Squiffy Bear, good morning. West Wind, now y'all are jumping in there. Joyce Bippas, good morning. Northern Cali. Yeah, I know it's a little early for you guys. It's a little late for some of our other viewers. So glad all you could join us. It's been a good week, I think. I did get a video out this week, you may have noticed, but the video on Balaam and his donkey. I did that for you, Squiffy Bear. But it took a few weeks because of the research. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I was reading line by line through Jasher and really crunching my brain on everything that was happening, trying to make sure I understood everything. So that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed putting that together at the end, but there's so much more. There's so much more information that came out of the study from Jasher that I'm thinking now on how, possibly make other videos to talk about some of that. So yeah, Red Raven, the poor donkey, he got beat. He was trying to save his master's life. Deborah Hicks, I see your question there. Let me get it. And I have gotten all the questions so far that I know of. Deborah Hicks, you asked about the fires. I can give my brief opinion on that. Patriot Keto Pop, you asked about language and if man invented words, did Adam and Eve even speak in the garden? Suomi Torah, your question, how many sons that Cush had, and was Nimrod his daughter? Red Raven, you asked me, and I think you did it over email because it was a kind of large question. It's hard to explain, but about casting out of demons and people's maybe acceptability for receiving that kind of a gift from God or a healing. So we'll talk about that. Christine, you asked about Leviathan and Behemoth. That was from last week. We'll get to that today. And then Deborah Hicks, your most recent one here of the accurate translation of the Bible. And what do I think of the Paleo-Hebrew? Joyce Bippas, is that a question, argument that we should be observing the Sabbath? So I can talk about that briefly. Christian, you say, why does the Bible say the earth will abide forever in Ecclesiastes? Yeah, we can talk about that. We'll go to that verse. You all are talking about pets and why they don't talk. I think it's interesting, just super interesting. I had a dog up until not too long ago. And if you have a dog or maybe another animal, I don't know, but when we were in the car, like we'd go somewhere, the dog, when we were coming home, he would know we were close to home instinctively. Almost unexplainably. So we could be like a mile or two from our house and he would alert and he would be up and like whining, because he was almost home. And it was just crazy to me. It's like they know things that we can't They have some kind of senses that we don't have, right? And whether that's being able to sense the spirit realm or see it, or just something weird about animals. They've got some kind of senses that we just do not have. It's just interesting. Judy, good morning to you. You ask a question there. Genesis 1 at the end and Genesis 2. Why does chapter 1 end with God creating male and female, and then God had no one to till the earth? And Genesis 2 starts the creation of Adam. Okay, Judy, yeah, we can talk a little bit about that. All right, that's a good number of questions. Now we may need to go ahead and get started with some of these, because that's a lot. I do have a time box today, but it's not too short, so we'll have to be done by at about 2 hours maximum today. So usually we don't really go that long anyway. So Kathy Slaw 1, 6-day man. Yeah, I think that's what Judy's question is about. And just to say it so you're aware, I did an entire video on it's called The Sixth Day Man. So let me maybe bring that up. Oh, I just realized I had my screen up on there the whole time, blocking your chat from the window. But yeah, on my channel, I think it's that way. Yeah, okay, here it is. The gap theory and the sixth day man. It's funny, I brought that video up this morning for some odd reason. That's so weird that you guys are asking about that. Oh well, anyway. So anyway, I think that Kathy Slaw 1 and Judy, I may just point you to that video, because it goes over all of this stuff. I can put the link in the chat. I can do that instead of taking the time today. There's a bit to it, and that link I just posted, that is the video that will go over all of the gap theory stuff. Okay, Thomas Morgan, you're kind of answering Christian's question, I believe, about the earth abiding forever. Yeah. Okay. All right. Good morning, Flat Bob. Good morning, Puckwidgey. Good to have you guys. All right. Well, if we could, then I'll go ahead and get started with a little bit of announcement, and we'll go ahead and get into these topics. Should be a good day. This is my website on the screen in front of you. It's at bible-scribe.com, as you see at the top left of the screen. I've been doing this for probably like 5 years now. And just about every Sunday we get together like this for this purpose, and that is for me to take questions, and then we go into those topics and talk about them together. I do expect participation, and I appreciate participation in the chat. It's important. I look at it. I try to stay up to date with what you guys are talking about as best I can as we go, and I answer questions as we go. But it's participation, and that really helps everything we're doing here. Our goal is just to get to truth, to get more information, more answers. I have some background and experience that helps with that, so I'll do my best to give you the answers that you're looking for if I have them. And if I don't, I usually admit it. But on my website, you can see I'm on a lot of different platforms. I want to briefly mention specifically Facebook, because on Facebook, I have a prayer group that is linked right on the Bible Scribe page, and it's right here. And we have a prayer group link there. You can join, you can request access. But in that group, weekly, we pray for each other, but we also pray for the requests that come from this live stream, so that, you know, we are acting in a sense as a church, praying for one another, helping each other. So that's a real blessing to many of us. So if you're interested in a prayer group where that's what we do, we pray, then please join that if you want. Then also I have a Bible application that you're going to see me use on the live stream today, and that is here, and you can for free still. It's still in kind of a development stage. It is free for you to register and access yourself, so you would have access to all of these different books of information. There's a large list here from early Jewish works and late Jewish works to early Christian works and apocryphal works, and you can search through them and you can cross-reference them. You can take notes, and so all of that is available to you if you're interested for your study. All right. I also have another channel called Sci-Cry. It's linked here on the homepage, and it is also on a bunch of different platforms. Some very interesting work there. In fact, I was working last night. There's a new video that will come out this week on the Sci-Cry channel. In fact, I have 3 videos in mind. One will come out, another one will come very quickly after that, and then there will be another one that I hope to get done by the end of the week as well. So there may be 3 videos on the Sci-Cry channel just this week. We'll see if I can get all that done. But I do have goals, and some of the goals relate to, honestly, the inauguration on January 20th. So I have kind of another schedule I'm on here. All right. So with that, just know that on my website you can find almost everything, probably everything that I have done, period. Like you see on my most recent updates here, I put the Balaam video and the Balaam webpage. So all of that's here. You can see for yourself. And you can also contact me by hitting the contact link. It just gives you my email, which is biblescribe@proton.me. You can email me anything, a question or any encouragement is always welcome for sure, or any prayer requests. You know, that let's just use it, you know, in that way. So all that is there for you. And let's see, what else? Announcements. I think that's about it. As far as what I was working on this week, I mostly focused on the Balaam video, getting that done because I know I'd promised it a long time ago, and I try to keep my promises. And I think it came out great. But yeah, so I was working on that, and I was working on this other stuff for Sci-Cry as well. Christine, that's great. That would be something, man. That would be interesting. Yeah, it would. All right. I'm just looking at your comments real quick before we get started. Okay. Good morning, Stacia. I just saw you there. It's good to have you this morning. All right. Well, let's go ahead and do prayer requests. So if you've got prayer requests, put them in the chat, and I will try to grab those up and get them over to our prayer channel this week so we can pray for them. But I'm going to go ahead and bow my head and pray for this meeting today. So even while I'm praying, if you want, you can get your prayer requests in the chat, and I'll try to scoop those up. So let's pray together. Lord God, I do thank you so much for this day. Thank you for the beautiful snow you sent this week to many of us. And I just praise you for the beauty in the world. And I pray for those that are in distress right now, too. There's a lot of people in different areas like California, Lord, that are losing a lot, and they don't deserve it. But there's some that may deserve it. Lord, I know that you know all these things, and you have it in your hands. Help us to do your will during this call. Help us to find answers that we're looking for. Help me to be honest and humble with what we do. And the advice that I give, the things I say, and help us to find what we're looking for in your word and in other writings. Thank you so much, Lord, for giving us this chance, this time, opportunity. We give it to you, and it's in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. All right. All right. Christian, you're saying good question, Ed Mack. Okay. I see Ed Mack's question. I was trying to figure out if he wanted it as a topic or if he didn't. So let me see. All right. So we'll go ahead and start then. And I pretty much put these all just in the order I got them. I did put Deborah Hicks at the top. And Deborah Hicks, your second question really was the California wildfires. And I'm not going to talk long about this, but you asked for my opinion, so I can go ahead and give it. My opinion is that these fires are man-made fires. I believe that they were started and guided by directed energy weapons, if you will, however we want to talk about that, whether they're using lasers or scalar waves or whatever it is they're doing. Definitely man-made fires started and progressed man-made. And then I believe that obviously there's some arson involved now. And I think that is actually to cover for the man-made, essentially military-grade fires that were started. I at one time thought that this whole thing was possibly, white hat based, that maybe we were getting Hollywood now for all the evils that go on there. But there are no indicators that this is actually good guys that started or pushed this fire. So it seems that after long consideration that this is definitely what you would call the deep state, the bad guys covering their tracks. The areas that have been burned, especially like the Getty Museum and all these different homes, things like Jack Nicholson's home, the Playboy Mansion, all these places we have known, and P. Diddy's mansion, we've known that they have tunnels underneath and that they traffic children in there. I mean, we just know it. We've had whistleblowers come out. We've had people say things. So this to me is number one for the elite to kind of cover their tracks as best they can before Trump takes office. And they didn't have any time, so they had to do it. And it is definitely not climate change, has nothing to do with climate change. None of the wildfires really ever have had anything to do with climate change whatsoever. And so that I think is it. I don't think there's much more to say about it. That's my opinion. So you asked for my opinion, and there it is. But yeah, some interesting stuff going on over there. It's really sad, actually. And yes, Christine, you're right. LA is slated for 2028 Smart City and the Olympics. And so, again, every time the bad guys do something like this, it always has multiple purposes. They almost never do something for just a single purpose. And that also clouds the discovery of like what was the motive and what was happening. So if they can get as much done with one event as possible, then they will. And so that's kind of what we're seeing here. Yeah, Stacia, they're definitely arsonists too. And it's funny, the arsonists are like illegal Mexicans and homeless people. So, they could have had people go to them on the streets and say, hey, we'll give you all this money if you just go start fires over there. And they give them a wad of cash. The deep government will do that kind of a thing, the intelligence agencies or whatever. So, yes, Christine, I think Lahaina was the same as this. In some regard, it was very similar to this. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't want to spend any more time on that. Let's go on to the Bible stuff, because I feel like lately I haven't gotten into as much of the Bible stuff. So, Patriot Keto Pop, you asked, if man invented words, did Adam and Eve ever speak to each other in the Garden of Eden, or is that something that came after temptation? So let's put this up. Did Adam and Eve speak in the garden? So that'll be our title here. Okay, now if Patriot Keto Pop, you by chance saw the Balaam and his donkey video that I just did this week, I kind of addressed this a little bit. So let me share with you what was in that video, and maybe that will help us understand this. So I did find in my research for that. Well, actually, I'd found it a long time ago. But because it involved animals, I brought it forward in the Balaam video too, as a justification for how a donkey could talk. But in the book of Jubilees, chapter 3, verse, I believe, 26, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so this is, this whole chapter in Jubilees is essentially when Eve and Adam sin by eating the fruit in the garden, and then God is cursing the serpent, and then he has to cast Adam and Eve out of the garden. And it says he made coats of skin for them, and on the day which Adam went forth from the garden, and that's a little small for you guys, let me get it bigger. Yeah. On the day that Adam went forth from the garden, he offered as a sweet savor an offering, frankincense, galbanum, stactet, and spices. And in fact, this is probably most likely frankincense and myrrh, by the way. It's just said differently in the Hebrew. So that helps you understand a little bit why the wise men may have brought Jesus as a baby gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Anyway, the gold is also mentioned, but in another place. So anyway. Then Adam went forth from the garden, and on that day was closed the mouth of all beasts, and the cattle, and the birds, and whatever walks, and whatever moves, so they could no longer speak, for they had spoken with one lip and one tongue. So apparently, all the animals spoke in the garden. I mean, we really have record of Adam walking. Let's see, was he walking and talking with God, or was just walking? But we do have record in the first book of Adam and Eve of Adam and Eve talking with each other and talking with God, I believe, in the garden. So I would say that we definitely, Patriot Keto Pop, have evidence that they spoke in the garden. It sounds like, as far as this is saying, that all the animals and Adam and Eve spoke to each other with one language. And so, yes, it seems that they did speak to each other. Again, we have to realize the nature of Adam and Eve. It was spiritual in a sense, but it was also very physical. So they had both qualities. But when Adam fell, he lost most of the spiritual sensibility that he had, and Eve as well. And so, as we read in the first book of Adam and Eve, they were depressed because they couldn't experience the angelic, the spiritual things like they had before. So, although they were spiritual in a sense, they were also very physical. So I believe they would have spoken too. They wouldn't have used anything like mental telepathy or communication like that. So they probably did, as far as we know from all the writings, they spoke to each other in the garden. So I hope that helps. Just checking you guys' chat. Okay. Christian, are you talking to me when you say we can't take snippets from different historical texts and remove the context while shooting into the future? I don't think you're talking about what I'm talking about. I think you guys may be talking about rockets. So I'll leave that to you guys. All right, but I think Patriot Keto Pop, if you're on and you've heard this, that I've answered your question. So let's go forward then. Now this is a good one. This is a good one from Suomi Torah. So Suomi Torah, if you're there, can you give me a little more on your question? You said, how many sons Cush had? Was Nimrod daughter? I don't understand. Are you asking if Nimrod was his daughter. So let's look into this just a little bit, because I don't know that I know a whole lot about Cush. So all I'll be able to do is kind of look into it with you guys here on the call. So let's do that. Let's just search everything in the whole database for Nimrod. This should be fun. Go. All right, just 3 books that I've got online have that: the Bible, the Book of Jasher, and Philo. Because Philo has only 2 results, let's look at those first. And I see, Suomi Torah, that you mentioned Genesis 10:7. So let me put that in my notes, and we'll go to that soon here. So Philo, what does he say about Nimrod? On the giants. So Philo has a writing. Philo was a Jewish philosopher, if you will, or you could call him a scientist-ish, but a scientist as anyone was back then, but a philosopher, and he wrote during the early 1st century, okay, maybe a little prior. So he has a writing called On the Giants, an entire writing about the giants. He says, with the sons of earth removing their minds from contemplation, becoming deserters so as to fly to the lifeless and immovable nature of the flesh, for they too became one flesh. As the lawgiver says, adulterated the excellent coinage and abandoned the better rank which had been allotted to them as their own, and deserted the worse rank which was contrary to their original nature, Nimrod being the first to set the example of this desertion. Interesting. Okay, I'm trying to parse all that in my head, so let's see what this second one says. For the lawgiver says in the next verse, this man began to be a giant upon the earth. It says he was a mighty hunter before the Lord. That's the way it was translated. And the name Nimrod being interpreted means desertion. For it was not enough for the miserable soul to stand on neither side, but having gone over to its enemies, took up arms against friends, resisted them, made war on them. Moses calls the seat of Nimrod's kingdom Babylon. The interpretation of that word is change, a thing nearly akin to desertion, the name too being akin to the name, etc., etc. Okay, so that doesn't help us too much with Nimrod, other than kind of asserting, reaffirming that, he was a problem. I think what it's talking about when it talks about the nature of the flesh, I think what it's saying is that it's the way it says, the sons of earth removed their minds from contemplation and became deserters to fly to the lifeless, immovable nature of the flesh. So it's talking about people that, instead of focusing on and enhancing the more elite aspects of their life, the better aspects of themselves, contemplation, thought, refinement, civilization, instead they desert that and they go to pretty much sexual pleasure is what it's talking about here. The immovable nature of the flesh. The two became one flesh. So it's saying that Nimrod was a part of that mindset, had abandoned, thought, contemplation, knowledge, intelligence, civilization, and essentially acted as a bohemian, as a barbarian, living in the flesh, living in the moment. It sounds like is the description there. So that's what Philo says. Now let's jump to your passage, Suomi Torah. Let's go to Genesis 10. I believe it's going to be right here. Yeah. You said verse 7, the sons of Cush, Seba and Havilah, Sabta, Rama, Sabteka, and the sons of Rama, Sheba, and Dedan, and Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord. Wherefore it is said, even Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel and Erech, Akkad, Calneh in the land of Shinar. I don't know, Suomi Torah. Are you being coy with me? Do you feel that Nimrod was a transgender person? Is that what you're hinting at? It seems like what you're hinting at. That you think Nimrod was not born a man? Is that what you're saying? That's an interesting postulate. Interesting postulate. So, Christine, you ask, is it possible Nimrod was the first demon-possessed post-flood? Then Thomas Morgan, you say Nimrod has the spirit of Apollo to ascend into heaven. Red Raven asks, were there giantesses? I don't know that there were giantesses, Red Raven. That's a good question, though. I've never heard. I don't know that I've read anything in the biblical or extra biblical texts that were specific about female giants. I don't know that I've seen that. It's a really astute question. Suomi Torah, as far as that idea that possibly Nimrod was a transgender individual, I mean, from the passage we just read in Philo, I would say that it's not out of the realm of possibility, but I really don't have any information on it other than that. I really don't have much on it. First Chronicles 1:10, let's see. Sons of Cush, Sheba, Havilah, Sabta, same sons. Cush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty upon the earth. See, that word's it a different way. You're right. Genesis 10:8 says he began to be a mighty one in the earth. Let's look at the Hebrew there and see if it says he began to be a mighty man. Let's see if it says that just by looking at the Hebrew. And Cush begat Wekus Yalad et Nimrod hu Chelel Leyot Gibor Ba'aris. So Gibor is like the Giborim. That's the mighty man. It's the word that's used often to describe the giants. But also, like, for instance, in David's army, he had Giborim, mighty men that were in his army. Were they giants? It seems they might have been, or at least had some giant blood in them. But it says that, Nimrod began to be a Giborim. Okay, it doesn't say that he began to be a man. So I can't get from this verse, Suomi Torah, I can't get from this verse right now that there was any kind of gender change. It's not out of the realm of possibility. I just don't have the evidence here. Suomi, you say Apollo twin sister was huntress Athena. Right. Well, there's Nimrod and I don't remember the Babylonian name. Is it Astarte or Ishtar? I can't remember which is which there, but yeah, there is a female counterpart to Nimrod. I guess my assumption was that was always a queen, or a concubine, or whatever you want to call it. I don't know. It's very interesting, though. Let's see. Let me just see if there's any other results in Jasher, perhaps, that are interesting here as I skim through. See, in Jasher, chapter 7, verse 23, we see that Cush, the son of Ham, son of Noah, took a wife in those days in his old age, and she bare a son, and they called his name Nimrod. So in the account that Jasher gives, if this is accurate, he was born a son. But it says at that time the sons of men began to rebel and transgress against God. This seems to be what Philo was talking about. The child grew up. His father loved him exceedingly. He was the son of his old age. And this is interesting too. I don't know if you know this, but one of the reasons Nimrod became mighty was this right here. And I believe this is in both Jasher and the book of Jubilees, if not mistaken. That the garments of skin, as it says here in verse 24, the garments of skin which God made for Adam and his wife, Eve, when they went out of the garden, were given to Cush. And I don't want to go read it, further here, but it says that Cush concealed those skins, but Nimrod actually got those skins from Cush. Cush gave them to him because he loved him so much. And so Nimrod put on the skins that were given to Adam and Eve by God and somehow gained great power through those. It says in verse 30, Nimrod became strong when he put on the garments, and God gave him the might and strength. He was a mighty hunter. So anyway, very interesting stuff there. Yeah. Marnie, 73, good morning to you. Vesture of power. Yeah, vesture. Is my thing misspelled or something? It's possible. Yeah, well, anyway. Luke Baruch, it's good to see you this morning. Welcome. You say Shinar is the territory they built Mount Kala in. Modern day Iraq isn't the original site. Nimrod changed the new moon to the crescent moon and made war with heaven. Sin is a Babel moon god. Interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, I do know the god Sin. Was that the female? If it's the crescent moon, it should be the female counterpart, right? The crescent moon represents the vagina, essentially. Yeah. It's a very interesting time. You know, I was thinking this week, there was a point I was thinking about, I think there's some old video I did, really old, on the giants. But it really would be fun to put together a whole new video on the Nephilim and the giants and all of that stuff. I think that would be really fun. And I think, of course, I could produce it a lot better than I did back when I did my old video. So very interesting. It'd be very fun. But there's so much to all that. Yeah, thank you, Suomi Tora. That was a good topic. Very interesting. Christine, you say, yes, do it. Luke Baruch, you say not in Babylon. Sin was an old man and is still their chief god. Huh. Yeah, well, there is a goddess named Sin, and I believe it may be Sumerian then, not Babylonian. But anyway, something to look into there too. Yeah. Yeah, I think there's a lot of dots to connect there with all those different peoples, the gods, and their... Of course, I have tracked their kind of movement through history, the names of the gods they used and how they progressed. But I think that would be a fun thing. Maybe I'll consider getting a video ready in the near future on that. I think that'd be fun. So, all right. Well, let's get on to our next topic. What is it? Red Raven, you gave me that topic from email, and I'm trying to decide. You said maybe I shouldn't do it. I don't know why you don't want me to do it. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do your topic, Red Raven. Now, I may put over here, I want to put it on the screen so that you guys can see it. Got all my notes here, but Red Raven, Yours is this. So here's your topic. The other day you heard from a YouTube evangelist, a caster out of demons, claim that Jesus' power and willingness to heal a random unbeliever on the streets is stronger than that of healing a person of existing faith. Essentially, because their faith is fresh and so unwavering, in that moment Jesus reveals himself extra miraculously. So you read the account of the woman who was healed by reaching out and touching his garment in Matthew 5, Mark 5, Matthew 9, Luke 8. You say, I don't get the sense that if you already believe Jesus is less likely to heal your affliction. Or am I wrong in that we must experience some greater level of suffering to further our faith to be eligible to be healed? Well, Red Raven, here's the thing. So I could go into the Bible and I can find examples of people that probably that were believers and needed healing. When Jesus, and I'm thinking of when Jesus was walking earth, right? In the Gospels, like you looked up this lady who touched his garment and she had the blood flow, and he stopped it immediately just because she touched and had faith. And but he healed a blind man the blind man already knew who Christ was. He already believed in him, but God healed him, or Jesus healed him. God healed him through Jesus, perhaps. But we've got others. And so there's lots of examples of healings. We have the centurion I'm thinking of. The centurion it's hard to know whether he was any kind of believer, but as a Roman centurion, he had heard of Christ and he believed because he came to Christ asking, can you please heal was it my servant or my daughter? I can't remember. So there's these different healings. Let me tell you though, to me, when you think through all these healings, and I'm talking about Christ, I'm not going to go online and look at some healer who's claiming to heal people and use that as my example. There's no way. Okay, I'm going to go to Christ. So when I go to Christ and I look at that, the common theme with all the healings is the common theme the person? Is the common theme the person's belief? Is it always their faith? Is it how long they've been a quote Christian or a believer? Is it the person's righteousness? Are they a righteous person? Do they do good things? Is that what God uses as his determining stick? But the reality is that in the Bible, in the Gospels, when Jesus was walking earth, the one common thread between all the healings that he did is that God was glorified in the healing. So the one common denominator is that he had a purpose for the healing. It was either for it was for the demonstration to those around to prove that he was the Son of God, or it was for that person to build their faith and then for them to go tell others about the Son of God. Like he told the lepers, he told, go and tell everyone. Oh, no, wait. The lepers was don't tell everyone. He did that for the lepers. But there were others he said, go and tell everyone. So to me, the common theme is that it's all about God's motive and his goal. If his goal is going to be fulfilled by a person being healed, and then praising him, and then telling other people about him because of it, using it as a testimony. Now, to me, that's a good candidate for a healing. But also, sometimes it might be for a person that is not a Christian, not a believer, maybe not even a good person, so that they will change. We have seen that happen as well. So to me, the commonality, Red Raven, is not with the person. It's never about the person. It's always about God. It's about him getting glory through whatever happens. And that's not always easy to determine for us, because we're not, frankly, not that smart. So to me, it's like that's really all about God. And if I am hurting and I'm in pain and I am sick, then my only thought is praying to God for help so that I can get back to doing what he wants me to do. So, and if he saw fit not to heal me, I think that I would just believe there's some purpose for that too, even though it sucks. It sucks for me. So to me, that's kind of how I think about it. I really don't think that a true healing by God is about the person being healed most often. It's about what effect is that going to have in the kingdom for God. And sometimes, of course, in that's one person's life. How's it going to change the person who's healed? So anyway, that's my thoughts. What are you guys saying here? Emma Coombs, you say when you were a little girl, you prayed to Jesus and asked, please let my nail grow as I bit my nails really bad. I felt a warmth come to me from head to toe, and the most sore nail, grew just one, and just enough. That's interesting. So for you as a little girl, that was a confirmation to you that God was listening to your prayers, right? So to me, that is exactly the kind of thing God would do, okay? He built something in the kingdom through that, you praying and him answering your prayer. Ed Mack, you have always questioned that Jesus didn't take just one with him from the cross. Take one with him. I'm trying to figure out what that means. Are you talking about the thieves? I don't really understand that. Christian, you say many were healed though and returned not to give glory to God. Only one person according to the Gospels. Oh, that's interesting too. Yeah. That's interesting too. Without going into those stories, I can't speak much on it. I don't remember much of that, I guess. Stacia, you say for healing, I think we have to get back to prayer and fasting, which only prayer is preached. Fasting has been put on the back burner when it should be on the front. That's probably a good point, Stacia. I like it. I think fasting is just a super good thing for us. I actually am way overdue for a good fast. I've been thinking about it, but I haven't done it. I think that that's a really good thing for a couple different reasons, both health and for spirituality. Oh boy. Judy, you say you have been believing and trusting God for healing. A lot, if not most. I just feel it's spiritual warfare. Sometimes it's a process to help growth, not always instant. Yes, I understand that, Julie. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I can see that being something that could happen to me too. I mean, I'm in pretty good health right now. And I am very aware that God could take that away in an instant. I really am. And so yeah, that to me is something I think about, but I also know that God has a plan for me, and so that helps me. I kind of have this weird discussion with God where I'm like, well, God, if I'm still being useful for you, keep me healthy, keep me strong. If I'm still being useful for you, as long as I'm strong, I'm going to do it. So whatever it is I'm doing here, I'm indebted to God for my health at this point, is what I feel like. So I'm doing what he wants me to do as best I can. And I feel like, for some reason, as long as I'm doing that, he's going to keep me in a position where I can keep doing that. whether that's through health or whatever it is. I hope that's the case, but if it changes, then I'll do my best with what he gives me. Ed Mack, so you clarified. You said, yeah, one thief said he believed in Jesus, 2 thieves, and one was told. Looks like it broke off there. Good thing to say there, Joyce Bippus. You say God is always listening, but you may not get the answer you want. Continue to pray because it shows him that you're relying on him and not on yourself. Yes, it's true. And Squiffy Bear, your statement there is critical. It's critical to understand that we can further God's kingdom through ill health. Just think about it that way. That's it. This is just our body. It's only here for a time. And if it being unhealthy is something that can be used for God's glory, so be it, right? It's so hard, but at the same time, if we have the right mental perspective, we can do it. We can go through things. We can make it. Yeah, Ed Mac. So I think that Ed Mac, what you're asking is you've questioned why Jesus only took one of the thieves and not the other one. But I mean, I don't know what to say to that. Would you expect that he would take the thief that didn't believe in him? I think that, well, and Ed Mack, you say you pray for me. I'm sorry, I'm getting off track, but I know you guys pray for me, and I appreciate that so much. Thank you so much. I don't even know what to say, but thank you. Yeah, we're doing this thing here. Whatever it is we're doing here, which, I mean, I know exactly what it is, but I'm just saying God has his hand in it, and we're going to do our best as long as we can, right? We're going to do our best. That's what this life's about. But yeah, Ed Mack, in terms of the thieves, I think that, you have to realize that God treating sinners with punishment is just, and it is holy, and it actually furthers his kingdom as well. If he was merciful to people that spat in his face, then that would destroy the kingdom. Okay, if he allowed wickedness into his kingdom, that would be the end of his kingdom. So he has to judge. He has to divide the sheep from the goats. That's part of the kingdom. That's what makes it. It's just like America. If you don't have a border between America and the outside world, then America ceases to exist. It's that simple. Same with the kingdom. Didn't mean to get political. That's good stuff. All right. Well, I think we'll go on then. Christine, you asked about Leviathan and Behemoth. Are they the beasts in Revelation 13? Leviathan and Behemoth, are they the beasts in Revelation 13? So, all right, Christine, I've got it cut off there. Hang on a second. Revelation 13. There we go. All right. Leviathan and Behemoth and the beasts in Revelation 13. Now, this is not a bad question. This is a good question. And the thing that's funny to me is, Christine, I thought the same thing for a long time. I really did. So if we go to the Bible, book of Revelation, chapter 13. And the reason I first thought that was because it's a beast and it rises out of the sea. Okay? And then another beast comes up out of the earth. And if you know anything about Leviathan and Behemoth, you know that Behemoth is really the beast of the earth, I would say spiritually speaking. And Leviathan is the beast of the ocean, again, spiritually speaking. Now, there's a ton of information on these guys that I've got. Again, this is one where I should have done a video or something. I don't know. Let's see. Do I have videos on Leviathan or Behemoth? Behemoth. I don't remember. We did talk about it one time on, let's see, a year ago, apparently, on this live stream. We talked about Behemoth and Leviathan. But, yeah, I haven't done a video specifically on them, it looks like. I think I did some Leviathan stuff, yeah, on this series I did on Who is Satan, Part 2. So that also has a little bit on it with Leviathan. But anyway, let me just see what I can get to real quick here. Leviathan. Behemoth and Leviathan. So, yeah, I don't think I have any more on... Yeah, I don't have this in my research section on my website either. But I need to put it there. I need to get it there. So, Esdras 2... Let's see... let's see. Okay, so Esdras chapter, 2nd Esdras chapter 6 has a lot of stuff on Behemoth and Leviathan. So this is, let's see, I want to make sure I say it right. Who is this speaking? I said, this is Baruch talking to God, essentially. Let me make sure this is big enough for you to see. Then thou didst ordain 2 living creatures, the one called Behemoth, the other called Leviathan. And you did separate the one from the other for the 7th part, namely where the water was gathered together, might not hold them both. Unto Behemoth thou gavest 1 part, which was dried up the 3rd day, that he should swell, or should dwell in the same part wherein are 1,000 hills. But unto Leviathan you gave the 7th part, namely the moist, the water, and have kept him to be devoured of whom you wilt and when. Now this is the interesting part of this. Leviathan, it says, is kept to be devoured of whom thou wilt and when. So he's reserved at the point Baruch is writing. Baruch is writing a few hundred years before Christ. Okay, so this is before Christ came. He's writing that Leviathan has been reserved to be eaten by somebody. Okay? And I thought that Behemoth was also in that category, that they were both reserved to be eaten. Let me see where else we get this information from. Book of Enoch. Yes. Book of Enoch, chapter 58. So let's go to Book of Enoch also. 58. Oh, come on. That may not... Sometimes my chapters on some of these books are not exactly what they are in all the translations. So they shift a little bit. Behemoth, let's see, there we go. Book of Enoch. Mine, it's chapter 60. Okay. Okay, on that day, now this is Enoch chapter 60, verse 7 and 8. On that day, 2 monsters parted, a female. Now, what day is it? I want to know. When the day, the power, the punishment, the judgment come, which the Lord of spirits has prepared for those who worship not the righteous law. So this is the day of judgment. Okay. Okay. As far as I understand, I'm not going to go further back in Enoch, but I'm pretty sure this is right after Enoch had gotten a prophecy from God about the coming flood. This is about the flood of Noah. And so the day of judgment they're talking about is the flood of Noah. This is not something in our future. But it says that on that day were two monsters parted, a female monster named Leviathan and the male named Behemoth, which occupied with his breast a waste wilderness named Dudan. And I believe I actually could find that on a map. I think there's a place called Dudan. But anyway, I digress. On the east of the garden where the elect and righteous dwell is where this Dudan is. Where my grandfather was taken up, the seventh from Adam, the first man whom the Lord of Spirits created. All right. So that shows us where in the book of Enoch this is mentioned. So there's these two beasts. They're apparently, based on what we've read, they're massive. One is female. Leviathan is female. Behemoth is male. Leviathan is from the water. Behemoth is from the earth. So there's all these characteristics we're now starting to put together about these creatures. Let's see here. Apocalypse of Abraham apparently has this too. Let's jump over here to that, see what it says. Apocalypse of Abraham, chapter 1, I think it was 21. Oh, I'm sorry. Chapter 21. My bad. There we go. All right. I believe he's talking to cherubim. I believe that this is when Abraham is in heaven. He's talking to cherubim around the throne of God, and one of them says to him, I am ordered to restrain the Leviathan, for every single attack and menace of every reptile are subject to me. This, of course, is saying that Leviathan is a reptile. The cherubim says, I am he who has been commissioned to loosen Hades and destroy him who stares at the dead. And the comment from the translator is that this, quote, staring is an attitude of Satan, whereby he paralyzes the victims and victimizes the dead. So this is something that is said possibly in other writings that Satan does to the dead. There's another writing called, I believe it's the Discourse on Abaddon, that talks about the angel Muriel, who is turned into this angel that every dead person when they die sees this angel in a flash, in a moment, and is frightened to death, essentially. Very interesting stuff. I can't really tell you certain things about all of this and connect it all together yet. It's something I've been studying for a long time. It's very interesting, though. I have thought in the past that Muriel angel possibly was Satan, but not positive about that. But there's all these interesting things we do find about Behemoth and Leviathan. Let's see if there's any others that I think we should take a look at. Second Baruch chapter 29. Let me look at that really quick. Baruch 2, chapter 29. Where is that? 1 through 8. Okay. So Baruch asks, or excuse me, someone answers him. Baruch says, whatever will then befall the whole earth, therefore all who live will experience it. For at that time I will protect only those who are found in those selfsame days in this land. It will come to pass when all is accomplished that was to come to pass in those parts, the Messiah shall then begin to be revealed. So this is probably talking about the revelation of Messiah, meaning Christ's advent, his first coming. Of course, this was written hundreds of years before that. And Behemoth shall be revealed from his place, and Leviathan shall ascend from the sea, those two great monsters which I created on the 5th day of creation, and shall have kept until that time, and they shall be food for all that are left. Now, this is again referring to being food. The earth will also yield its fruit 10,000-fold on each vine, etc., etc. That sounds like Garden of Eden type stuff, heaven type stuff. Now, that's because there's other writings. I'm not going to go into any other writings on this live stream, but I'll tell you what I know. What I have read, and when I keep going into this, is that it seems that at the time of the resurrection, when Christ went to Hades and resurrected all the dead righteous from Hades to go to heaven. Now, remember, he tells the thief on the cross, today you will be with me in paradise. That is a word that means the Garden of Eden in heaven. And so when he takes Adam, and he takes Moses, and he takes all the patriarchs and the righteous out of Hades, Christ is said to deliver them to paradise, to the garden. He reinstitutes Adam in the Garden of Eden in heaven, and he provides a banquet, a feast for them there. And that feast is said to have been the Behemoth and the Leviathan. They are made into food for all those who are resurrected, who have been waiting thousands of years for the Redeemer to come. So I'm just saying that overall, that is the narrative that is painted if you take all the writings together with Behemoth and Leviathan. Now, so then back to your question, Christine Yu. That brings us back to, well, are those the beast from the land and the beast from the ocean that rise in Revelation chapter 13 and deceive everybody and cause all these problems? One of them has the number of a man, which is 666, okay? But in the end of that narrative, they are defeated, right? Is this the beasts that we're talking about? I will say just that I have in the past wondered about that. I do not have a definitive answer. Are they the same? They may be. And it may be that instead of thinking of these as monsters, we should really be thinking of these as spiritual demonic entities, if you will. Because the beasts in Revelation chapter 13 are specifically, and they definitely have all the attributes of demonic entities. Okay, they are able to do things. They are able to, essentially, as far as we understand Revelation, the first beast from the land is able to move Rome. He's able to inhabit the Caesars, and they do all these evil things. And then the second beast, if I'm correct, seems to have been the one inhabiting Simon Magus and Menander and a few other really evil, wicked magicians who took people away from God. And so I can't answer the question 100%, but I can show you this and talk to you and tell you these things. So who knows? It could be. It could be that Leviathan and Behemoth were the beasts in Revelation chapter 13, but they are defeated. It says, though, however, well, does it? I'm trying to think. I think it says that the beasts were thrown into the lake of fire, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just double check that real quick. Let's do that search real fast. Revelation, yeah. Revelation 19, verse 20. The beast was taken, with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them that had received the mark of the beast and worshipped his image. These both were cast alive in the lake of fire, burning with brimstone. And so because of that, that is a divergence, okay? So the beasts in Revelation apparently are thrown into the lake of fire at the end of their battle with God. And the Leviathan and the Behemoth are simply killed by God and then given to those who are resurrected and go to the Garden of Eden as a feast. Is that the great feast, the great supper of the Lamb? That's a good question. It may be. It may be. A lot of those things are very hard to connect. Okay, very hard with the writings we have to connect, but they may be connected. So I hope that's helpful. I hope that's helpful, at least interesting. Like, there's a lot there. There's a lot to this, and I really should get this research page that I've got with all the information on Leviathan and Behemoth. There's quite a bit of it. I need to get that online so you guys could see it. So maybe in the if you give me maybe a day, I will update the description of this live stream, and I'll try to get that put online with a link to it, okay? And then you can see the information yourself. All right, so I'll try to do that. Yeah, it's a big topic. It's a tough one. It's a tough one. All right, what time is it? I need to make sure I'm good on time. Yeah, so far so good on time. Deborah Hicks, you ask, what is our most accurate translation of the Bible? And do I think it's Paleo-Hebrew? Paleo-Hebrew. All right. So Deborah Hicks, I will do my best on this. So let's see here. I'm going to have to do a little research, honestly, because I know I've heard people talk about the Paleo-Hebrew. I don't know if there's a Paleo-Hebrew Bible. Let's look for it. Paleo-Hebrew Bible. Hey, look, it's a free Paleo-Hebrew Bible online. Let's see. Okay, let's see if we can get any information here. I'm really looking for information on it, not just to read it. Let's see. FAQ. Let's see. Is the alphabet called Proto-Sinaic or Paleo-Hebrew? Blah, blah, blah. Okay, I don't care about that. How is it pronounced? Nobody knows, whether you say so or not. Nobody knows how the original Hebrew is pronounced. Okay. This doesn't help at all. This doesn't tell me anything about the Paleo-Hebrew version that they're using, where it came from, nothing, okay? So this is useless. Closing that website, closing that. Okay, what about this one? What does this have? Shalom, shalom, yes, shalom. Shalom. This is very difficult to look through. Very difficult. Is there any better, like... See, I don't, how do I go about this? Oldest Hebrew copy of the scriptures. Torah, maybe. Oldest Hebrew copy of the Torah. The 9 oldest copies of the Torah in the world. What are they? The University of Bologna Torah Scroll. That's from 1155 AD. The Leningrad Codex from 1009 AD, 1,000 years after Christ. The Damascus Pentateuch, 1000 AD, 1,000 years after Christ. Aleppo Codex, 930 years after Christ. The London manuscript, Ashkar Gilson Hebrew manuscript, 700 years after Christ. The En-Gedi scroll, ooh, that's a good one. The 3rd or 4th century after Christ, 350 years after Christ. Now, that's a very large portion. That's like 2 pages. Okay. Let me see here. En-Gedi scroll online. So where's the super duper old? Wow, the charred En-Gedi scroll. That's amazing. That is the En-Gedi scroll. So what does it have in it? the text recovered consists of 18 complete lines and 17 parcels of the first 2 chapters of Leviticus. It's got less than 2 chapters of Leviticus. That's from 350 years after Christ. I already know that I have a Septuagint copy that's from the time of Christ. Okay, we have the Peshitta. We have manuscripts from the time of Christ. We have the Sinaiticus, which is earlier than this text, and it's more complete. It's got the entire Old Testament. Okay, so now we're getting into it here. Christian, you suggest I check out Wes Huff on the Joe Rogan show. Okay, maybe I should do that. I'm still looking here through the oldest Hebrew copies of the scriptures. The Nash Papyrus from the 2nd century before Christ. Ooh, that's a good one. It has only the 10 Commandments and a part of the Shema. This is the entire piece of paper. So that is not a complete copy of the scriptures. The Dead Sea Scrolls. Now we're talking. See, between the 2nd century BC and the 2nd century AD, that doesn't make any sense. Whatever. But the Dead Sea Scrolls are quite complete, right? They're quite complete. So if we're talking about Hebrew, then literally the only copy of the Hebrew scriptures we're talking about is the Dead Sea Scrolls. It's the oldest one, and it's almost complete. Thousands of scroll fragments, over 900 manuscripts were uncovered. Okay, this is it. Then there is the Ketef Hinnom silver scroll amulets. These were 600 years before Christ, and they have a very brief portion, very brief, from the book of Numbers, apparently, the 4th book of the Torah. So this is not a copy we can use for anything, except maybe verifying a few words in the book of Numbers. So I'm just saying, like, when we talk about textual evidence, for me to take anything other than the Dead Sea Scrolls and say that's, if some people would take the Dead Sea Scrolls and say, see, this is the oldest copy we've got of the Hebrew, this is it, this is what we should use. And so I think people that say, well, we should use the Paleo-Hebrew, that's what they're doing. That must be what they're doing, because there's no other copy for 1,000 years almost of the Old Testament scriptures. There's no other Hebrew copy for 1,000 years. Do you get that? From when the Dead Sea Scrolls were written, okay, that we know of. They may be older than we know of. But if you are claiming that we need to study a Hebrew version of the Bible exclusively, then you must use the Dead Sea Scrolls. There's no other text to use. And so the Septuagint, to me, and Christian, you're mentioning it, the Septuagint was from the time period of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and it was verified by everybody at that time. Everybody that was writing from the early church was saying the Septuagint is the thing. The Hebrews even say it's the thing. Okay? So the reason they did that is because everybody spoke Greek, so they wanted it in Greek, and that was 350 years before Christ. Everyone wanted it in Greek, and so all 70 Hebrew scholars get together, and in very, very devout prayer, they copy the thing from Hebrew to Greek, and they make lots of copies. We have tons of copies of the Septuagint. So the reality is that the Septuagint is probably really, to me, the best bet for understanding the scriptures, for understanding them in their oldest form. Again, if you try to go with the Hebrew, you have either the Dead Sea Scrolls, or you're grasping for straws that came out of the Middle Ages. Okay, the Hebrew versions, most of them came out of the Middle Ages. Do you get that? That's after Kabbalah started. That's after the Holy Roman Catholic Church had just totally corrupted Christianity. I mean, there's so many problems with thinking the Masoretes had anything good to give to the scriptures. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel about it. But to me, if you're going to say, I only study Hebrew and I'm going to study the Word of God out of Paleo-Hebrew, then you need to get these manuscripts and you need to study them word for word. That's the only choice you've got. Now, if you're studying someone's translation of these Hebrew manuscripts in English, I don't know how much good you're doing yourself. Like, I don't know how that's helping you. We've got tons of English translations of Hebrew texts. We've got tons of them. In fact, most of the translations of the Bible are made from partial use of the Hebrew text along with the Septuagint, like the New American Standard, like even the King James, I think, to some degree. And so I just think, I don't know. So I'm kind of ranting on the Paleo-Hebrew thing, and it's just because I hear people say Paleo-Hebrew is important, we need to study the Hebrew, blah, blah, blah. But really, I don't know if they really understand the manuscript evidence enough to say that, to really have a valid opinion on that. Because to me, the Septuagint really makes sense in this case. When we have Christ quoting from it, we have the disciples quoting from it and using it. It's hard to make a case against the Septuagint. But anyway. But there's probably more I can learn about this topic. I take your comment, whoever it was that mentioned Wes Huff and his Joe Rogan thing. I'm going to put that in my notes because I'd like to watch that. I liked the Billy Carson debate with Wes Huff. I watched that thing. I almost decided to do a video on it, but then I said, nah, I'm afraid Billy Carson will probably sue me too if I do that. So I decided not to do it. But yeah, Wes Huff did a great job. And he has a totally, he's a very much more experienced and dedicated textual researcher than I am. He knows the languages better. His focus is on the oldest texts, okay? And so I just loved hearing him talk about that stuff. He's got a great basis, a background for that, and a ton of information that he was able to rattle off where it would take me a while to get some of that. And he was just like, bam, 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 bam. The Billy Carson debate was funny. To me, it was like two guys fighting. One has a knife and the other one has a Gatling gun. And Wes Huff was the Gatling gun. I mean, Billy Carson didn't have a prayer in that debate. It was really sad. It wasn't even much of a debate, really. And Wes Huff seemed to do a pretty good job of trying to be cordial with Billy Carson, even though Billy wasn't really given many answers. And then I actually enjoyed hearing the host, and I don't remember his name off the top of my head. The host of that debate, he was quite interesting. And it's funny. I just liked hearing him describe his Christian walk as he perceived it. He claims to be a Christian, and it's such honestly a bit of a naive understanding and a very immature, but at the same time, that guy, the host, he really wants to know more and understand more. He was really thirsting for some good knowledge, So I don't know. I had fun watching that. It was interesting. Yeah, it was pretty brutal for Billy Carson. But I don't know if Billy Carson's followers found it to be brutal. I don't know. I just think the mega reaction of suing Wes Huff is ridiculous. That is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of. That he sued Wes Huff because he lost a debate. I'm not even sure how he can do anything with that in court. I think that may just be thrown out. I mean, it's just stupid. Anyway, Christian, you said Wes Huff's testimony on the Joe Rogan show is a miracle. Well, now I'm really interested. I'm going to have to watch that. There's an hour or two I won't get back. That's great. All right, guys. Let's see. We got a little more time. Let's see. What have we got next? Joyce Bippus. You asked this. You asked if we should be observing the Sabbath. I think this was a question you wanted me to talk about. I will say this. The earliest Christians, from what I understand, and I've read a lot of them, did not celebrate the Sabbath, except for some of the Jewish ones. But otherwise, what we do see is the earliest Christians saying that we don't celebrate the Sabbath anymore. Those were the Jewish ways. Those were according to the Jewish law. They say instead we are celebrating Christ's resurrection on the 8th day, or rather the first day of the week. So they started celebrating his resurrection on the first day of the week, the day after the 7th, which was the day after Sabbath, the 8th day, so to speak, which of course has prophetic significance. So that is what we see from the earliest writings of the church, that they did not necessarily practice the Sabbath. Did they counsel against it? No, they didn't. They didn't say you shouldn't observe the Sabbath, but they did say you shouldn't practice the Jewish law anymore. They said things like that. Like they said there's no reason you shouldn't do it. But to me, in terms of the Sabbath, now I can see a case for observance of the Sabbath simply because it's the 7th day, and prophetically speaking, we are either in or towards the end of the 7th day of prophetic time, the 7th 1,000 years of history. So to me, observance of the Sabbath isn't a bad thing. I don't know why we would make it like, is it good for me to do it, or is it bad for me to do it? I don't know if it matters one bit. I think it can just be up to you. But I'm telling you what the earliest Christians said. They said, we don't celebrate Sabbath. That was a Jewish thing. That's over. It's done. And so instead, we celebrate Christ's resurrection on the 8th day of the week, the first day, if you will. So I hope that helps you understand my perspective. I take that exact perspective. And I don't feel like the Sabbath is something that I have to participate in, but if I want to, great. I will say that it makes me think of prophecy. When I think of the 7th day of the week, I think of prophecy. I think of God. I think of what he's doing in history. And it's exciting. But then, of course, to me, Sunday or the first day or the 8th day of the week is of primary importance because of Christ. And that's how it should be, really. So I hope that helps. It gives you my perspective, at least. Ed Mac, you're off every day. Great. Good for you. That's great. Joyce Bippis, you say, it's just that so many people are now saying we should be observing the Sabbath, and it doesn't make sense according to the scriptures. I would agree with that. I agree with that, Joyce. And, sometimes I used to direct people back to the Book of Jubilees, which is a very Jewish book. And in that book, they claim that the Sabbath is for them and no other nation. Okay? So the people that really try to get Christians to observe all the Jewish practices, they don't really seem to pay attention to the Jewish writings that say, hey, our practices were for us only and us alone, and not for not for the pagans, not for the non-Christians, non-Jews, not for the Gentiles. not for the goyim. Our laws were given to us by God specifically. And that seems to be true. Of course, the Bible says that as much. It says, God gave the law to, he made agreements with Israel and Jacob, not with Japheth, okay? As far as I understand, I'm a descendant of Japheth, okay? And God did not agree with my people, nor my ancestors, to put us under a law of Moses or anyone else. Now, I obviously am under the law of Christ, as it says in the New Testament. And the point of it talking about the law of Christ was that it's different from the law of Moses. Okay? It has nothing to do, not that it has nothing to do with it, but it's different. It's different. So anyway. Yeah, and a couple of you were saying, you couldn't take a Sunday off. Like Ed Mack, you're saying you were a truck driver, you couldn't take a Sunday off. God's not going to throw lightning down at you if you can't observe Sunday as a day of rest. Of course, that's not what the Christians did in the early church. They observed Sunday as a day to get together and praise and worship and be together. They had potluck dinners every Sunday, if you will. And I've been in a few churches that had potluck dinners like weekly, and I really loved that. It was, number one, it was great cooking. And it was a chance for everyone just to get together and enjoy each other, So I don't know. I wish we as Christians still did that kind of stuff. Hey, good to see you, Kingdom Within. I hope you're doing well. Good morning to you. But anyway, yeah, I hope that helps, Joyce. I hope that helps. That's at least my perspective on it and what I've seen in the writings I've read. All right. Christian asked this question. This may be our last one because we're getting on in time now. We're getting long in the tooth. All right. Why does the Bible say the earth abides forever in Ecclesiastes? So why don't we jump there real quick? So Ecclesiastes, let me see. Let's just search for the word forever. That didn't work. Let me try abide. Ecclesiastes, there it is. 1:4. Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 4. So this is the beginning of the passage. I'll just read from verse 1 to 4. The words of the preacher, son of David, king in Jerusalem. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit has a man of all his labor which he takes under the sun? One generation passes away, another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. All right? So your question, Christian, is why does the Bible say that the earth will abide forever? And that understanding of that word is what we say in Western language. It's infinite, right? That's how we interpret that word, forever. Okay, but what we're going to do is we're going to go to the Hebrew here, and I'm going to show you something. One generation passes away in the Hebrew comes, but waha'aretz, the earth, la'olam omadet. It abides forever. Olam is a word in Hebrew, and it does not mean forever. However, they do translate it that way. It has a derivation from a root that means to conceal or hide. And the reason that root is used for this word that means a long time is because when you conceal something, it stays preserved. Okay, it's long lasting. And that really should be the way we interpret this in English, long lasting. But instead they go, Strong's here goes to a very Western mindset of some kind of infinite foreverness. But that's not true. You see, the meaning here is concealed, eternity, frequently, or always. I would say that I have heard Hebrew scholars tell people in their discussions on the words here that there is no word that is infinite in the Hebrew language. There is no word that is infinite. So forever does not exist in the Hebrew language. You see here in Genesis 4, this same word is translated as mighty men, which were of old. Okay, they weren't forever. They were old, long-lasting. They were extant. Okay, so the real meaning here is not the Western mindset of an infinite forever. The meaning here is that it's long-lasting. So that is really the translation we should have of this verse. It doesn't really mean that the earth will last forever. Okay? Does that help? Does that help? Because that's really the way this verse should be translated. It should not be the way it is. Christian, no, I didn't say that the earth will not be recreated as some state, but be destroyed. I'm just saying this verse isn't proof of an infinite earth. But I do believe the earth will be remade, okay, as far as what all the writings say about the Great White Throne Judgment scenario at the end of known history. At the end of, quote, I guess I would call it physical history. Because at that point in prophecy, the history records of humanity stop and then start something new that's spiritual, according to all the prophetic indications. And that doesn't mean I'm not saying the earth is annihilated, but according to the writings, fire does come down and it cleanses the earth, remakes it, reforms it for getting ready for spiritual things to come down to it. The new Jerusalem, heaven, angels, God, all these things then come down as it is reformed. So that is what we see in the Great White Throne Judgment narrative. So I hope that helps. Ed Mack, you did what? You did 1.5 million miles driving? Whoa. Red Raven, you asked me then, so the Jews do not believe that God is eternal. I didn't say that. I didn't say that. What I'm saying is their language does not, when they use this word olam, and they use it for all sorts of things, God, times, things that we know in history already occurred. So they'll say that word about things we know have occurred and are over with. So we know it's not an infinite word. It's just one of those words that's a little difficult for us to translate in English. We don't really have the same kind of word in English. That's why we have to dance around it. We say things like ancient or long-lasting or perpetual, or you'll see lots of different definitions of that word. And when you see that, you have to realize that's probably because the actual original Hebrew word doesn't have a direct translation to English. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. I'm only saying that the language does not prove an infinite thing. But when it's used of God, that he is olam, meaning long-lasting, he abides, long-lasting, then it obviously means that, they had the assumption that God was, number one, he was the source of all things. So, the assumption there is that he is infinite, but they didn't use that word. They didn't use the word infinite. They just didn't have it in their language. Okay? It just wasn't a thing. I hope that sometimes it's like I think I'm explaining that good, but I'm not sure. I wish it was easier. I wish it was just simple, but it's not. Okay, let's see. What time is it? Now I'm just checking the clock, making sure things are good. All right. I think that's about it. Ed Mack, you did have a question. You said most teachers I like speak against the structured church, as they should. What are the problems with preterism? Maybe that's the question you want to talk about, and that'll be our final thing. What are the problems with preterism? Well, You know, I used to consider myself a preterist, and I still do in some sense. So, you know, I'm very close to this topic. Obviously, you guys know that. I guess I'm still a partial preterist in a sense. So, I wish I had, and I have not. I wish I had read Ken Gentry's books, because I think Ken Gentry, for the most part, has a very similar understanding of prophecy that I do. I believe that's true, but I haven't read his books, so I hesitate to say it. I hesitate to say it. Now, Christian, if you're and Ed Mack, if you're talking about full preterism, they have some major issues, because they say that all the prophetic things in Revelation and everywhere else in Scripture really were fulfilled in 70 AD. And then the biggest problem they've got is that right after that, Christians started writing about those things in their future. Okay, so obviously they didn't happen at that time, because no Christian thought that they happened. None, zero Christians. Zero, do you understand this? We have zero record of anybody after 70 AD saying that 70 AD was the fulfillment of all the things in prophecy. We have nobody, no record of it, nobody throughout almost all of recorded early Christian history. Okay, so I can't think of anyone that was saying anything like that, even as far up as the Reformation. I don't think there was anyone saying that all prophecy was fulfilled. Anybody. So the full preterists, they have to say everybody was confused after 70 AD. Nobody got it. Even though they had the apostles, they had preachers, they had hundreds of people who'd seen Christ walk on earth and heard him teach, apparently they were all deluded about prophecy, and none of them got it when it happened. Nobody? Are you serious? That's why it's so highly improbable that that's the case, that it really causes credibility issues with their entire perspective. Okay, so when I, of course, did my research and studied through the early Christian writings, I started to realize that there is two things being talked about in scriptures. There's more than just 70 AD. Much, much more. And I saw it in the old ancient prophecies and in the early Christian writings. And I've taught on that stuff now at length on my channel. The video on the Great White Throne Judgment, the video on the Day of the Lord, the video on the eschatology of the early church fathers. I would point people to those videos if you want to understand this better, because that was what came out of my study of all those things. Now, I think partial preterism is, for the most part, pretty good. There is still some issues with partial preterists. I think sometimes they still try to shoehorn too much into 70 AD, and I believe that many partial preterists, they're not necessarily like what we would call ourselves little seasonists, I guess. So some of them don't really understand the timeline of prophecy and how it's playing out. Almost none of them, almost nobody anywhere understands the stuff that I have taught on the 8th day in prophecy. Almost nobody. I have a whole video on the 8th day, and if you don't know what that is, I guarantee you'll like it. It's really amazing information. But there is an 8th day in prophecy, and it puts a lot of things into focus, a lot of help. It helps you in a lot of ways for eschatology. But both partials and fulls, they all miss that. Nobody really gets the 8th day. I don't understand why. It was so clear to me after I saw it. I don't know. We just miss it for some reason. Very few people talk about that. So I guess in general that's the main problems, Ed Mack, with preterism. It's not totally wrong. Like when I first came to preterism and started to understand what you would call preterism, and that is mostly surrounding the events of 70 AD, that's a huge revelation for any Christian because we haven't been taught any of that. And so when you start to see prophecy is fulfilled in that time period, your eyes are like, "Wah!" and you can't believe it. And I was like that for a long time. I mean, I still am. It's still amazing. It's miraculous. Everything that happens in 70 AD and leading up to it. You see many events in Revelation just playing out. You see them. And so that's crucial for Christians. But then we don't want to take that to the nth degree like the full preterist and say, look, everything was fulfilled. There's all these symbols, all these things in Revelation. They're all symbolic or repetitive, like Don Preston says. They're repetitive in nature. And they just cycle over and over again. It's all Revelation. It's all 70 AD. We can't go to that nth degree. That's wrong. Okay, the extreme there is just wrong. And the early Christians told us so. They were very clear about what was fulfilled in 70 AD and what was not fulfilled in 70 AD. I think I've done a good job showing that in some of those videos. So I do hope that helps you, Ed Mack. But yeah, I mean, and to be frank, we've all got problems. Nobody's perfect here. But I guess as time goes on, I feel like I'm refining my viewpoints more and more. I feel like I'm in a good place right now with most of my eschatology. And so there's that. So I encourage you to catch up on any of those videos if they will help you. Christian, you say you'd rather say early church people than early church fathers. Yeah, I see, Stacia. You say, why do we call them church fathers? I just call them that because that's like the standard name. So if I say early church people, are people going to, especially people in that area of scholarship, are they going to even know what I'm talking about? You know, that's the problem, is that naming convention, the early church fathers, is so ubiquitous that if you say something different than that, people might not know what you're talking about. So you got to be careful with that. Sometimes I just use the verbiage there because people understand it, right? So anyway, that's something to think about too. All right. Precarious one, you say, if I'm no longer preterist, am I a futurist? I would say in some sense I'm a futurist. I mean, I'm not like a Tim LaHaye futurist. I'm actually more of a partial preterist. I understand and I agree with what Jesus did in 70 AD. It was crucial. It was a plan of God's for his people Israel. It was fulfillment of many prophecies. But then also there are other prophecies that extend into our future, that extended past the time of Christ. There's some prophecies that extended into the first few hundred years after Christ and on into the future, including things that will come after you and I are here. Even the book of Enoch has prophecies that extend beyond us. So you got to understand that prophecy has been laid out for thousands of years that extends well into our future. Okay, and to deny that is simply to deny the writings that are out there. I mean, yeah, Allison Matthews, you say early church leaders. That's why I say early Christians, early Christian writings. That's what we're talking about. Some of them were not fathers. The Shepherd of Hermas, as we know, was not written by a specific church father that we know of, but it was useful writing for the church. So anyway, things like that. All right. Michelle Ann, you say you never got notifications for my channel. You had to look me up. What? Well, I don't know. Maybe double check that you got the subscribe and the notification button. I know they got all this stupid stuff now. I'm not much on all that stuff as far as keeping up with it. I don't try to push people to like and subscribe and hit the notifications button. But if you want the notifications, I don't know. Make sure you got them all checked. I don't know what to do. Okay. Well, I'm sorry, Michelle Ann. Just, when we meet on Sunday mornings, so you can make it. Yeah, I mean, Stacia, in your comment on the Catholics and their quote fathers, I would never, never treat another human like he had any place or station over me, or between me and the Father. So, yeah, I agree with you. All right. Well, this has been a lot of fun, guys. Thank you so much for the time today. It's been great. And I was glad because, oh boy, I was glad today that we got back to the Bible, because I know after last week, some people I think were upset that we talked a lot about the flat earth topic. And I know that that's a kind of a divisive thing sometimes. But I also at the same time felt like the videos that I did, even the live stream with you guys on the flat earth topic, was important to do because the final experiment had just occurred. And so now that that's over, I don't intend to spend any more time on that necessarily in the short term. So I hope that that's fine. Christian, you're like, no more flat earth. Yeah, exactly. So, there's people on both sides of that coin. So I just, for those of you who did not want any more of that, I understand. And we probably won't be going there anytime soon anymore. So I'm glad today we got back to kind of our roots. So it's good. It was really enjoyable. Thank you guys so much for your participation. Have a great 8th day of the week. And, spread the word, talk about the things we talk about. I think if people really knew all the fantastic things that the scripture holds for us, I think if they understood what was in there, they would want to study like we study. I do think that's true. So tell friends, tell family members, if you don't mind. Have a great week. God bless you. Take care of yourselves. The chat will be up for just a minute if you need to get any prayer requests or any other comments in. Thanks, guys.